figured that I should start by looking at the myths of counting calories. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Psychology with Khian. Today, we'll be talking about counting calories and eating disorders. Of course, before we move on, let's say a big thank you to FnK Concept. You can check them out on Shopee or Lazada for cool products at reasonable prices. Well, a few months back, I went on this Tinder date, and then we were talking about a lot of things, and then I mentioned that count calories. And then my Tinder date said that I think that you have an eating disorder. And I was like, why? And she was like, because you count calories, who the hell does that? And I was like, okay, that's pretty interesting. Well, if you count calories, does that mean that you have an eating disorder? Let's look at the DSM-5. As I mentioned in previous videos, the DSM-5 is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. Well, in the DSM-5, there's a variety of eating disorders, including anorexia nervosa, bulimia nervosa, restrictive avoiding eating disorders, specified feeding or eating disorders, unspecified feeding or eating disorders. There's so many that I can't even name. All these are different eating disorders, but one thing they all have in common is that they all cause clinically significant impairment or distress to your everyday life, to your everyday well-being, and to your everyday functioning. What this means in layman terms is that if you have an eating disorder, or any disorder for that matter, it's gonna make you unable to function as a normal human being. And this triggers me a lot as a psychology student or just a person in general, because a lot of people don't understand what having a disorder means. A lot of people, just because they prefer a tidy and neat environment, they go around saying they have OCD. No! 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 Yeah. People do that. I mean, come on. If you have OCD, you probably spend like 14 hours a day cleaning your room or cleaning your hair or something like that. I mean, if you spend 14 hours a day cleaning, you probably can't do anything else in your life. Now that's what you call having a freaking disorder. If you prefer to be clean and, you know, wear this type of clothes every day, does not mean you have OCD. Come on. So does counting calories mean that you have an eating disorder? I figured that I should start by looking at the myths of counting calories. Number 1. People say that counting calories is an eating disorder. Unless you're counting calories to the point where it's affecting your everyday life and well-being, it is not an eating disorder. Well, I could transition to an eating disorder because when it gets bad, you might have eating disorders like bulimia nervosa, anorexia nervosa, all of which we'll talk about in some other videos if you're interested. But counting calories itself is not an eating disorder. There's no eating disorder named counting calories. No, not at all. At least not that I know of, or not that I've come across. Number 2, some people say that you shouldn't count calories because you should intuitively eat. I mean, for the longest of time, we all practice intuitive eating. As a baby, you just eat what you wanted. And look at what we have become. Obesity is now a larger issue than starvation. That tells us a lot about intuitive eating. If you intuitively eat, more often than not, you're unhealthy rather than healthy. And that's because when you intuitively eat, you can't have a clear way of knowing what you're eating. Because you just eat what you want. And food nowadays, just for your information if you didn't know already, extremely unhealthy. Outside food packed with calories, packed with extra fat, packed with unnecessary things that you don't want. That's gonna make you morbidly obese. I'm not gonna say this is wrong just because it's politically incorrect. It's not good to be morbidly obese. You have a higher risk of heart diseases, cardiovascular diseases, and you have a higher risk of dying earlier. So if you're morbidly obese, you should probably do something about it. Number 3, some people say that counting calories is gonna make you have an unbalanced diet. I mean, come on people. The entire point about counting calories is to make sure that you have a balanced diet, because when you count calories, you have a mathematical idea of like, hey, I need to have more of this in my diet. Hey, I need to have less of this in my diet. Maybe you're eating too much fat, too little carbs, too much protein. So counting calories, more often than not, is gonna make you have a balanced diet. Saying that counting calories is gonna make you have an unbalanced diet is literally like saying that exercising is gonna make you fat. Number 4, some people say that counting calories makes you have a poor relationship with food. Coach Greg Doucette has said this before, and I certainly agree with him. Relationships are with people. You do not have a relationship with food. How many of you here would eat your boyfriend? How many of you here would eat your girlfriend, your dad, your mom, your brother, your sister? If you want to eat someone whom you have a relationship with, like, that probably means that you might have a disorder. And with food, you just eat it for the nutrition, for the micros that you want. I mean, like, you didn't go to bed with your ice cream. That's just weird. And that's it for the myth. I've debunked the most common myths of counting calories. Yay! Let's now get to what I think about counting calories. Number one, I think that counting calories is a form of self-regulation. And self-regulation ensures that you're functioning better on a daily basis because a lot of time we do not eat enough of the nutrition that we should eat. Number two, counting calories makes you smarter because when you have to count calories, you need to learn to read food labels. And I would argue for sure that reading food labels is gonna do you more good than bad. Because firstly, you won't get tricked. Secondly, you know what you're eating. When you get a loaf of bread and it says 75 calories and you know how to read food labels, you're gonna be like, okay, 75 calories for how many slices of bread? And how many slices of bread is equivalent to how many grams? Like some people that I know in my life actually think that 75 calories actually means the whole loaf of bread. I'm not even kidding, and if you think that, you should probably learn how to read food labels. Because that's how you self-regulate and that's how you have a balanced diet. There are more points that I could cover, but I think I've covered them when I was debunking the myths of counting calories. Throughout this video, you might think that I'm pretty one-sided because counting calories I think is a good habit, or at least learning how to count calories is good practice. But to make sure it's not overly one-sided, I should like to say that although counting calories is important, make sure you don't overdo it to the point where it affects your everyday functioning. Don't spend 20 hours a day counting calories because, you know, that's going to transition to an eating disorder. That's all I have to say today. I hope you learned something about counting calories, about nutrition, about a disorder. Again, reminder, a disorder is something that causes clinically significant impairment or distress to your everyday functioning. I hope you enjoyed today's Psychology with Khian. As always, if you're interested, do check out FnK Concept on Shopee or Lazada for cool products at reasonable prices. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, hit on the bell icon, and I'll see you next time in Psychology with Khian. Malaysia is on lockdown again. I hope you're keeping well and safe and healthy. Until next time, I'm out.